afternoon, good day, ladies and gentlemen from the media and all our colleagues and colleagues from the ANC caucus who are with us this afternoon. The ANC Parliamentary Caucus welcomes the constitution of the Section 89 Impeachment Committee, including the election of its chairperson. The committee has a mandate to investigate allegations that President Cyril Ramaphosa may have breached the constitution and his out of office. The multi-party 31-member committee includes 9 members of the ANC, and we have no doubt that it will conduct its work in a non-partisan manner, in line with parliamentary oversight responsibilities as outlined in Section 55 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. This process is essential to ensuring that the executive and organs of the state remain accountable. We also want to clarify the issues relating to the role of the ANC study group. The leaders of some political parties within the government of national unity have publicly raised concerns about the ANC study group. The first salvo was fired by the UPM leader and Deputy Minister of Defense, Mr. Manfulu Misa, in a letter addressed to the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Howard Giza, and the Chairperson of the Public Service Commission, Professor Somati Dafige. The ANC Parliamentary Caucus believes it is imperative that we take our GNU partners and the people of South Africa into confidence regarding the purpose and operations of our study group. We state categorically that our GNU partners' opinion about the ANC study group, which are substructures of the ANC caucus, are not well informed and completely misguided and devoid of any truth. As the name suggests, the study group is a preparatory forum where ANC members of parliament collectively engage with and analyze documents and matters that belong within the terrain of the work of their department. Study groups are meetings of the ANC members of parliament that discuss a variety of issues, including forthcoming committee business, oversight of government, departments and organs of the state, the processing of legislation, and the facilitation of public participation. Officials from government departments are occasionally invited solely to provide factual and technical briefings on matters of interest to the respective study groups of the They are certainly not sinister attempts to facilitate some kind of a state chapter and many of as others instead all ANC members of Parliament have taken an oath to uphold and describe the Constitution and the laws of the country. We therefore wish to assure South Africans that no constitutional provision is violated when a political party establishes for the internal purposes of study. The internal workings of the ANC caucus is controlled by the office of the chief. Neither the Speaker of the National Assembly nor the Chairperson of the Council of Provinces It is factually incorrect to suggest that the Interstatic Group are platforms through which members of parliament become embedded in administrative processes. The ANC has consistently exercised its oversight role in accordance with the constitutional obligations imposed by Section 42, subsection 3, the legislative authority contained in Section 44 of the Constitution of the Republic and the Rules of Parliament. The invitation of public sector officials to provide information to any political party does not contravene any of the laws of our republic. All political parties are at liberty to request information from government departments to assist them in performing their oversight responsibilities. Such requests are routinely accommodated in a manner consistent with the law and relevant protocols governing the disclosure of official information. On the issue of migration challenges that continue to confront our country, we have noted the rising tensions between South Africans and foreign nationals living in our country, which have had a negative impact across the continent. South Africans have been accused of xenophobia, and countries such as Ghana has repeatedly initiated processes to repatriate some of their citizens from South Africa while also raising concerns through continental institutions. We strongly reject the strange notion that South Africans are xenophobic. South Africa is the biggest and sophisticated economy in the region and naturally attractive to economic migrants from the region and the rest of the continent. Our neighboring countries also have a duty to their citizens living in our country. We condemn any unlawful conduct towards foreign nationals, irrespective of their status in our country. On the same vein, the NC caucus strongly condemns the behavior of some foreign nationals who display arrogance and contempt towards South Africa, its people, and the law. The NC caucus notes the pressures facing our economy and the persistently high rate of unemployment. We therefore urge employment agencies and employers to comply with both labor and migration laws. The exploitation of undocumented workers is unlawful and constitute a violation of the Labor Relations Act and Basic Conditions of Employment Act. We commend the Border Management Authority for upgrading of at least six of the country's principal borders posts and surrounding infrastructure. These upgrades have introduced modern technology capable of tracking and tracing visitors who overstay their lawful period of stay, as well as individuals who enter the country on short-term permits and fail to depart as required. We also welcome the refinement and implementation of the first state country principle, which provides that asylum seekers who have already been granted refugee status or lawful protection in another country, or who have passed through safe third countries before arriving in South Africa, may be ineligible for asylum in South Africa. In terms of the prioritization of South Africans through small business development, we welcome the efforts led by the Department of Small Business Small Business Development and the Minister Comrade Stella Ndabeni to protect local livelihoods through legislative reforms, business licensing frameworks, and targeted township economy support programs that prioritize South African citizens within the bounds of the laws. Through the Spaza Shop Support Fund, government has invested significantly in sustaining locally owned spaza shops by providing financial and non-financial support to South African-owned enterprises, helping to prevent the displacement of local businesses. The ANC Parliamentary Caucus remains committed to advancing policies that promote economic inclusion, strengthen border management, uphold the rule of law, and protect the constitutional rights of all who live in South Africa. On the matters relating to the Speaker of the National Assembly, we have noted strange calls for the Speaker of the National Assembly, Comrade Togo Didiza, to recuse herself from the proceedings relating to the work of the impeachment committee. Gratuitous allegations have been made that the Speaker lacks the capacity to impartiality in order to guide the work of the impeachment committee, merely because she is a member and the leader of the African National Congress. Comrade Togo Didiza is a long-standing member and the leader of the African National Congress, who has demonstrated leadership acumen in dealing with governance matters over the years. There is absolutely no basis whatsoever to suggest that she will compromise the work of the impeachment committee, and the ANC caucus categorically rejects the call for the Speaker to recuse herself. On local government elections, the IEC has designated the 20th and the 21st of June 2026 as the first open weekend registration in preparation for the local government elections. The ANC caucus will deploy all our public representatives to engage with the people of South Africa, particularly the youth, to register to vote. The right to vote came at a huge price and cannot be taken for granted. Unregistered South Africans are encouraged to register online on the IEC website, which is clearly defining the process and the step through which you need to follow to be registered. All our parliamentary constituents offices are also open on daily basis to assist voters who wish to register but are unaware or may be having difficulty to access the website and get themselves registered. Thank you very much, Comrade Donald.
Thanks very much, Mbemba. Thanks very much, Chief Whip. Colleagues, there you are. These are our issues. This is what we wanted to put forth, the clarities we wanted to provide on all areas that the Chief Whip touched on. I'm going to allow you to an opportunity to ask questions on areas that you may feel. Yeah, I'll start with you. I hope you're home now. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Chief Whip. I just want to touch on the issue of the social upheaval regarding foreign nationals in our country. I want to know to what extent, I know you're not part of government, but you are part of the majority party. And I'd like to know, because a lot of what government implements previously has also been ANC policy. To what extent will the accountability come from the ANC as well, in so far as it relates to the creation of jobs, for example? Because a lot of what South Africans are saying is that foreign nationals are taking their jobs, which is simply not true. In fact, Stats SA says that approximately 8.9% of South Africa's workforce consists of foreign-born nationals. Of course, that also um, looks at the informal sector. So that is not even a fraction of what South Africans are in the South African labor force. So it speaks to the failures of government in creating enough opportunities for South Africans to actually find their place within society, as well as we saw earlier as well that there were tensions regarding the placement of children in schools. But according to the Department of Education, only 1.8% of children within schools are those of foreign nationals. So the sentiment really is that South Africans do not feel that there are enough opportunities for them or space within South African, uh, the labor force or schools. Is that not a direct consequence of the failures of government? Thank you.
Thank you. Uh, can take.
Tara from Business Age, Chief Whip, just two questions quickly. One, did the GNU parliamentary caucuses meet before the impeachment committee to discuss the nomination and secondment of Makushulikana? The ANC nominated, the DA seconded. Was that a discussion beforehand? And does the GNU plan to work together in the working of the impeachment committee? Secondly, MK and the EFF have both noted to the media that they plan to put forward a motion of no confidence against President Cyril Ramaphosa. What do you make of these sentiments by those two parties, and do you believe there are grounds for a motion of no confidence vote?
Thank you. If I can take. There you go.
Just want to latch on to that question. My name is Jason Felix. I'm from Letwerk 24. Just on the impeachment committee, Chief, a lot has been said over the last few weeks, and it's specifically a difficult period for the ANC, not only here in Parliament but also at Lutuli House. There's been allegations that there were some difficulties between yourself, Chief Whip, and the Secretary General, Mr. Fikile Malula, on exactly who to send to this Section 89 committee. But my question relates to the caucus of the ANC. Does President Cyril Ramaphosa still have the full backing and the full confidence of this ANC caucus, given that this has put the party in a very, very precarious situation? Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. If we can take the last one, and then the answer will come to the second round.
Good afternoon, Lindsay Denkin, Eyewitness News. With the former Minister of Social Development, Sisisi Tolashe, out of her ministerial role, Where will you be deploying her? In which committee of Parliament do you intend in deploying her? Thank you.
Thanks very much. Mbemba.
Yeah. No, no, thank you very much, and thanks for the thanks for the questions. Maybe let me start with the first question, Zolega. I think the real issue that we're confronted with is that which we may not escape at any time in point is that South Africa is the largest and the most sophisticated economy in the region, and to some extent, even in the continent. As a consequence of which, many people will always, when they are confronted by difficulties and hardships in their countries, prefer to migrate to South Africa. Because to a very large extent, here we are dealing with migrants, economic migrants, people who are searching for a better life and people who are searching for better conditions. And that is why you will find them finding all possible means, including very dangerous ones, to enter South Africa because they are coming from the countries where there are major difficulties and serious hardships. So one of the things that the ANC National Executive Committee, for instance, was discussing is how do we strengthen the work with our neighbors? Because as much as you can build your own security features to the point where it's difficult for people to enter your own country, the reality is that we need to intervene in a way that makes it difficult for many people to leave their own countries and come to South Africa. And how you go about doing that is that you've got to deal with the state of the economy in Mozambique, the state of the economy in Eswatini, the state of the economy in Zimbabwe, the state of the economy, all these other countries where you've got major movement of people who are coming to South Africa. If you don't have a regional response to this problem, it's not going to be resolved. It's in the nature of human beings. Even internally in our country, people migrate from one province to another, searching for better living conditions, employment, and all of those things. What has become a problem for us is that when our economy was no longer growing at the pace at which it had the capability to absorb as many South Africans, especially graduates, university graduates, and the rest of South African population, it then creates a tension between the South African public and the foreign nationals, especially those who are discovered to be undocumented foreign nationals, because then the competition arises and the perception, of course, runs faster than the truth, as you were saying, that statistically, the fact of the matter is that they are a drop in the ocean, those who are employed within our own economy. But the major challenge is also because you have some segments of the public sector who are very unpatriotic, who are employing these undocumented fellow Africans, exploiting them and treating them in the same way that slavery was carried out. Employ them, keep them in that firm, pay them in cash, no contribution to UIF, no contribution to SARS. As a result of which, then South Africans who are supposed to be getting that the job opportunities in those industries are left out. Because, as I'm saying, this is a result of a business sector that is unpatriotic. So one of the things that we need to confront, and I'm very happy that the Ministry of Employment and Labor is doing a great work to visit various factories in the country and various businesses, not only to challenge the conduct that is essentially unlawful, but also to expose that level of unethical conduct and immoral behavior on the part of some within the private sector who have taken a conscious decision that we are going to employ, and these are both South Africans and non-South Africans business people. You might have seen recently that there was a Chinese company or owned company where so many of these undocumented foreign nationals are employed, exploited day to day, and not being paid a decent wage. Now, all of these factors, the state of our economy, the stagnant growth on the South African economy, the conduct of some in the private sector to employ, even on jobs that does not require any special skills, but employ people who are non-South African, especially those who are undocumented, then creates a tension in society, and people start complaining about the fact that we're being excluded and the fact that foreign nationals are being favored at the expense of South Africans. But the other major problem that we have to contend with, Zolega, is that some of these fellow Africans, both documented and undocumented, have also displayed serious level of arrogance and contempt towards South Africans, which is uncalled for. You can't come to your neighbor and behave in a way that is inconsistent with the ethical standard, ethical standard of your neighbor. When you are not at your place, there is a particular way in which you are expected to behave so that you can remain accepted within the new circles that you find yourselves in. So that's one of the major issues. Of course, I agree with you that we have a responsibility to deal with the economy. The fact that the economy is not growing, there are some interventions that have been led by the president through Operation Vulindlela, solving out the problem of electricity. I mean, the state of ESCOM now should be helping us that you can attract a bit of investment in the country, given the fact that there's security in terms of energy. Of course, the fact that we still have major problems within the security cluster, the revelations were confronted with from Madlanga Commission of Inquiry and the ad hoc committee, also constitute a deterrent for people to come easily to South Africa and conduct their own business and investment. But we believe that with all those interventions and, as I'm saying, the improvement on the energy grid, we are on our way towards better opportunities in terms of investment and economic growth so that we can respond to these challenges. On the second question about the GNU, no, there was no meeting of the GNU before the establishment of the impeachment committee. Even when we were setting up the ad hoc committee, there was no meeting. Of course, there would be interaction between myself and the chief whips of other political parties in the GNU, even beyond the GNU, because we hold the view that what we believe in as the ANC is something that is consistent with the interest of our country. So when we have a view, we don't hide it. We engage everybody because we're confident of what we think and believe in. So even as we were preparing for the impeachment committee, I kept interacting with the whips of other parties. Of course, a very strange thing happened on the day, on Monday, when the committee was supposed to elect a chairperson. There was a caucus of all political parties, which excluded the ANC, the PA, the IFP, and Al Jama. All others were in that caucus. And what I learned was the central theme in that caucus is that we've got at all costs to block the ANC from chairing the committee. Everybody there was united around the fact that the ANC must be blocked. It must not be allowed to chair the committee. So obviously, as I'm saying, I've been interacting with them, and some of them were raising very valid issues, which I accepted. That there's no doubt that the ANC can have a chairperson who can discharge his or her responsibilities impartially and in line with our laws. But the perception might continue to haunt us that if the committee is chaired by an ANC person, will it be expected and be perceived or be seen to be impartial? Because the matter involves not just the head of state, but the president of the African National Congress. So that issue was carrying weight as I was listening to my colleagues raising, especially within the GNU, and including even political parties in the opposition. So when I landed in Cape Town on Monday morning, I raised that. I said to, for instance, to the leader of the TA, that I think there's merit. On the same vein, let's not allocate that responsibility. Yeah. Let's have a conversation about whom to select to take that. And Makashule Gagana became a natural choice on the basis of two reasons. The first one is that while his organization is part of the GNU, but neither him or his colleague are serving in the executive. So in a way, they are somehow insulated from the fear that he might act partially because he protects the seat they are occupying in the executive. But the second point is that he's a stable member of parliament. Very cool, calm and collected, very rational person. If you disagree with him, you do, but with respect and in a dignified way. So we thought, we said to the GA, we think that we can agree on that. And so the caucus that met earlier on, which was working to outmaneuver us, the ANC, was disorganized when we got into the house because they were laboring under a wrong impression that I am coming arrogantly to insist that the ANC must chair the committee. So when we walk into the meeting and the ANC proposed Makashuleka, they were disorganized. I mean, you could even see the facial expression of some of them. They were pretty disorganized. They didn't know how to deal with this. And we believe as the ANC that was the right decision for us to take it. The motion of no confidence by the EFF and the MK party. Look, the MK party and the EFF is a very unholy alliance. What really unites them is opposition to the ANC, with President Cyril Ramaphosa as a principal enemy for them. If anything were to happen tomorrow to President Ramaphosa, they will have nothing to work together for. Their project is President Cyril Ramaphosa. We know that they filed in a motion of no confidence. We will await for that opportunity when that motion of no confidence comes before Parliament. And I can tell you without any hesitation that the African National Congress will not support that motion of no confidence. In the first place, we don't understand what is the agenda. The impeachment committee has been set up. It's intended to deal with the very same issue they are raising on the motion of no confidence. And we believe that if they were acting in the best interest of the people of South Africa, they should be waiting and gearing their energy towards the impeachment committee and see whether they are going to succeed in their effort to get the president removed. No, there was no tension between myself and the SG. Let me explain how we were. When you have to set up a committee, as a chief whip, I have to make a recommendation to the ANC, especially if it's a major decision. There are some decisions that I take an account later, but there are major decisions which might have fundamental consequences, which even if, as I take them, it requires that I must have a consultation with the ANC. So I did that in the normal way I usually do, through the Secretary General, who will engage the national officials, and then he will come back to me and say, we think maybe you need to make the following adjustments. And we discuss. It's not, the SG doesn't relate to me as somebody that cannot think. When I make a recommendation, I write it down. I explain the details why I think we must take a particular direction. Look, the issue, for instance, of the impeachment committee was very difficult for me because I had to choose mainly comrades who are chairpersons of various portfolio committees. And because we are going to do that, you have to be fully conversant, to have a command of details of what work is going to be required over the next 2-3 months by each and every portfolio committee where you are taking a chairperson to come and join the impeachment committee. Because my experience with the other committees that the work of temporal committees of parliament can completely undermine the rest of other portfolio committees. It was the case with the Justice Committee. So I had to exercise my mind in that context. And when I gave a report to the SG, I made those details known to him and the national officials. They reflected on it and they came back and they said, no, we agree with you with 1 or 2 changes that we think must be effected. Some of you were concerned that my name is not there. I'm the head of elections in the ANC. Over the past 3 weeks, I've not been in parliament because the ANC has insisted that I need to be on the ground to set up the election machinery as we prepare for the November local government election. So I anticipated that the ANC would not necessarily include my name as a member of the impeachment committee, primarily because I have an urgent task to prepare for the local government elections. But of course, the study group, I will always participate in the study group. They will, to a larger extent, be expecting me to provide political guidance on behalf of the ANC. And as and when they want to consult on me before taking a decision, that would not be a difficulty. And it doesn't require me directly to sit in the committee for them to enjoy that proximity to me. The last point about Comrade Sisi Dolashe, we haven't worked out which committee she's going to sit on, but all members of the ANC who are in the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces who do not occupy any role in the executive have to be assigned to the various committees in Parliament. So she will be treated in the same way. I just have to work it out and see which committee may require strengthening, because when you have someone who has served in the executive, both as deputy minister as well as a minister, that is an experience that you need, which we are going to have to use in the various portfolio committees in Parliament. But as to which of the committees, I haven't really finalized that issue, but it's work in progress. I'm sure in the next week or two, she will be assigned to specific portfolio committees. Thanks for the question.
There was Jason's second question. The president.
Sure. The president enjoys a confidence of the ANC caucus. I mean, I thought I dealt with that issue when I was clarifying the vote of confidence. There is no way that we are going to allow the opponents of the ANC to determine for us who will be the president of the ANC and the president of the party. President Cyril Ramaphosa was elected by the National Assembly. He enjoys the support of the ANC. I think he also enjoys the support of the parties in the GNU. So with no doubt that anyone who brings a motion of no confidence at the ANC will meet a very militant objection and resistance from the African National Congress.
Thanks, Bamba. Colleague, last slide. You can shoot.
Hello, sir. I'm Kevin Brand from ENCA. Are there concerns within the ANC that the impeachment process in Parliament might hamper your performance in the upcoming local government elections? And just on the immigration issue, from a legislative point of view, is there something more that Parliament could have done to formulate regulation around an escalating influx of anyone, not just people from Africa, but from all nationalities, to formulate as an oversight arm of state?
Thank you, Kevin. The room is the last question. Yeah,
Theolan Sember from Independent Media. You did just now raise in being the head of elections for the ANC. Just to pivot a little, how do you feel the processes are going thus far? Have there been any sort of challenges? We know there a lot of other parties have been announcing candidates, and the ANC has been a bit quiet. Just in terms of your side, how do you feel that process is going?
Which candidate? Mayoral candidate?
Either ANC, either the mayoral candidates or the possible councillor candidates as well.
Okay. Let's pick it. No, thanks. Let me start with the last question. The branches of the ANC are already selecting their candidates in various parts of the country. I think SG will at some point provide an update on the extent to which we have succeeded to do the selection. But I know it's a matter of fact, because branches are taking, PGMs are taking place, and the selection of candidates so far is going relatively well. And I think that we will meet the required deadline. The national officials of the ANC are also seized with the issues relating to the mayoral candidates, which is obviously not a very new terrain, not an old terrain in the ANC. We've had in the past selected mayoral candidates ahead of elections, but it was just few municipalities. Now the process is quite involved, very detailed, because it includes a number of municipalities, and unlike the way we've done before. I'm sure at the right time the SG will make a public comment about how far that process has gone. Impeachment and elections, Kevin, I don't think that that is going to have an immediate impact. Maybe let me explain how we see things evolving. Over the next week or two, the sub rules on the subcommittee on rules is going to be required to present a report to the Rules Committee of Parliament. That report is intended to provide detailed procedural way in which the impeachment committee is going to discharge its responsibility. Because remember, we've never had an experience before where we're impeaching a head of state or the president. Now, there must be rules which are going to govern that process, which must go to the Rules Committee and will ultimately go to the National Assembly for adoption. Beyond those rules being adopted, then the work of the Impeachment Committee will begin in earnest in terms of them deciding who is their first, last, second, and the last witness that is going to be considered. But remember that the stages that other people do not want to pay attention to is that the first question to be answered by the Impeachment Committee is whether or not there is a case for the president to answer. That question has not been answered. It might have been contemplated by the Section 89 panel report, which the president has taken on review. But Parliament itself, through the Impeachment Committee, will have to pose and answer that question. It may very well be that the Impeachment Committee will come to the conclusion that, based on the report that was considered and all other submissions, we are of the view that there is no case for the president to answer, which will therefore mean that the process collapses and it doesn't proceed beyond that stage. It may also happen that the committee will say he has a case to answer, and therefore require him to appear before the impeachment committee, at the end of which the impeachment committee must make a recommendation to Parliament. I don't think that we can say, sitting here today, without being certain about which direction the processes are going to evolve to, we can conclude that it will or will not affect the ANC in the elections. I think it's too early. We have to study as things are unfolding and assess the impact that it might have on the ANC. And I believe that the ANC research team is also very alive to that reality, so that from time to time the organization will be provided guidance, scientific guidance about how it should react and deal with the issues emanating from that process. On migrations, I think the issue, Kevin, is not necessarily about the laws and the lack of oversight. Of course, there are a few issues that need to be attended to with regard to the state of our borders and the way in which we manage them. But I do want to emphasize the point I made earlier on, that the solution does not lie in building a huge wall between South Africa and the rest of the continent. That's not the solution. If we want a long-lasting solution, firstly, we've got to do everything possible, which is what I think is being done now, to grow our economy as South Africans. The South African economy needs to grow, because there will be no evidence, if you look back for the past 30 years, there will be no evidence of an attack or a conflict or a confrontation between South Africans and the foreign nationals in our country at the time when the economy was growing well and things were going well, people were employed, there was a huge reduction of unemployment. You can't find that history. It started to become a problem, I think, from around 2008 and beyond, because of the economic meltdown, our economy not doing well. And obviously, when the economy is not doing well, people will always search for various reasons why they are not employed, while the state is not providing the required services to them. But if you deal with the economy, you minimize the problem. But that issue of dealing with the economy cannot just be a South African problem. We've got to deal with the economy in Mozambique. We've got to understand and create conditions that make it difficult for a Mozambican to leave his own country and come to South Africa. It must be difficult. And that difficult is not going to be the war. It must be because the economy in their own country is serving them effectively. And there will be no need to migrate to South Africa unless if you hold it because of a particular skill. You want to go and offer at a university, but not to go across the rivers in order to become a domestic worker in South Africa. That should not be the case, because when that happens, it's a statement about the state of the economy and the living conditions of these fellow Africans where they come from. So we've got to deal with that problem. Deal with that problem in Zimbabwe, deal with that problem. And we don't want to see what some of these consulates and sometimes ambassadors are saying, which is to condemn South Africans or South Africa, and even to want to act in a way that is intending to isolate us from the rest of the continent, without taking responsibility for the state of their own development and economy. We don't have many South Africans. We don't have South Africans who are migrating and forcing themselves to neighboring countries. Why? is because as much as they are living, some of our South Africans are living under difficult conditions, but it's better to live in South Africa because you know you might not have job today, but you will have it tomorrow. And people don't give up and say, no, I'm migrating, I'm going to Mozambique, I'm going to... And to conclude this point, Kevin, look at the border between South Africa and Namibia. Not many Namibians are in South Africa. Not because there's a big wall separating South Africa from Namibia. No, it doesn't exist. It's the same way that you have with Mozambique. But why there are so many Namibians? One, not many Namibians are coming to South Africa. The answer lies on the state of Namibia. Look at the economy. Look at the way in which their leadership is dealing with local challenges and difficulties in that country. It gives confidence to their population that I might not have something today, but tomorrow it will come. So there's no reason for me to become an economic migrant in the neighboring country and go there, even if I'm going to be classified as an undocumented migrant to that country. So it's important for us to deal with that problem holistically. It's not an easy solution. It's very complex. It needs leadership, which is why the ANC-led government and the ANC has to do something, working with our partners in the region and the continent, to respond comprehensively to the state of the economy in our region and the continent in order to overcome this problem, migration. Thanks, Don.
Yeah, I think colleagues, you are all covered, right?
I think for our part, the parting shot is that of course now we've begun the youth month, and I do want to emphasize the point that, and many of you are here also, I can see it belong to the youth category. So it's important that we must, together with you, because I'm assuming that you are registered voters. I think together with you, we need to mobilize the youth of our country to participate in the elections, to register to vote, and to be part of the solutions to the South African problem. There is no way you are going to sit on the sideline, be a spectator, and then claim that you are part of a responsible South Africans. You've got to do something. If you don't vote and you're sitting at home, you are not helping the situation in our country. You've got to stand up and take a decision and register to vote, because we chose in this country that we're going to be a constitutional democracy. There are 5 elections every 5 years, local government, national elections. It's the path we have chosen as South Africans. So we have to mobilize all the young people to register to vote and be part of the solutions to the problems of our country. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Colleagues, compatriots, we end it here, and thanks very much. We appreciate that you always give us an ear when we want to. We really appreciate. Thanks. Enjoy your day.
Thank you.